I remember the very place I stood when I first got my vision of animal communication. It was at a racehorse barn in California. It took me by such surprise, so strong, so spontaneous, so accurate. I went to the barn manager and started to talk to her about the racehorse that stood there and the past that he may have experienced, only to have it all validated. In those days, little did I know that horses could talk in pictures, that indeed any animal could talk in pictures. For me, somebody who sees in pictures in movies, that's the exact language and the exact way it would come through. For somebody else that maybe feels strong emotions or see words or hears things, that's how it comes through to them. Over the years, it's expanded for me. And I'm fortunate that their language I can hear, see, feel, sense. For many, it begins with the intuition. And you have this intuitive hit to go home where an animal might need you. You have an intuitive hit to check out the barn, or an intuitive hit to venture outside. I still get those. I remember a time when my 14-year-old dog was outside. It was Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. I'd been out a little while, and intuitively I found myself putting on my slippers, walking outdoors. Not the smartest that moves. We had snow in those days. When I looked outside and I found myself going through the front door, although usually he went out through the back, I saw my horses circling. Began to run, asked them to come away from that area, seeing this little dot in the snow, dragging himself forward. Unable to stand, he'd been dragged down by the snow. I ran harder and faster, telling Excalibur to back off, telling Aria to back off, leave him alone. They didn't know what he was. He looked like a dying animal, and maybe instinctually they would have put him out of his misery, but they didn't. They felt my plea, they felt my cry. I'd heard him. Merlin was calling. His hind end had given up. He was 14 and a little bit, maybe 14 and a half, and that snow was just too heavy. I was like a firewoman. Picked him up in those slippers, slipping all over the place, and brought him back inside. Got him to warm up by the fire. It's these intuitive hits that, if we explore and enhance, become a deeper form of animal communication. Instead of one sporadic moment or one moment that we put down to a fluke, we expand upon it, we exercise it, we learn more than in fact that was him calling. I could have gone through any door, I could have continued eating or staying inside, but there was something about it that got my attention. There's not just one incident like that for me. There's dozens, if not hundreds, and so do my clients and my students report them too. See, for me, it's about enhancing that intuition, finding out what they want to say to us and cultivating it. It's everybody's birthright to do that. Some people stay stuck. They get stuck in their paradigm and a belief system, what the peers say, or how they feel they need to respond from their upbringing and the world that they live in. It's not the world that's connected to nature. And all too often, our next generation is being removed from nature. So they're not necessarily feeling these things, sensing, hearing, as they remove themselves and sit behind the desks or the computers. But the more we can walk amongst nature and be around our animals, the more we get in touch with this form of communication. Bit that we feel it in our gut and we call it instinct, or we call it gut instinct. Bit that we feel it in our hearts and we make decisions around that, whether or not our heart sinks or swims, whether or not it sings or not. It's all form of intuition, and when we get into a deeper part of that, it becomes animal communication. For the skeptics out there, they might need that little bit more, just like I do. And I vowed when I went into this world and I changed my life and my career and the way I behave and do all of my horsemanship and beyond, that this would be the real deal. See, I seek answers. I seek depth. I seek truth, reality. Not the simplistic measures where somebody might look at an animal and tell you their temperament, character, or walk around and see the environment. For me, there's so much more to it. A high percentage of what I do is long distance. It's not with the animal present. It's all about venturing in your mind to another state or continent, in fact, another world. And the less you know from the onset, the more you show the individual that it's true and it's real. It's not like we're having an hour's conversation to set up, so the human to human part of sitting down with tea or coffee and they reveal everything. Less is more. The less I know, the better. The less I know I'm not making it up. The less I know it's not something I've already heard or I'm recalling from memory. The less I see, it's less complicated. It's harder if I'm invited to a location. And people often will say, I'd prefer if you're here because I don't believe you could do it long distance. Well, then when the animal describes their living conditions, people may think that you've seen it. So it's easier to go off a photograph to say, let me describe what they like, how they live, their wants, their desires, their personality. When you know nothing about them, that's a pretty good place to begin. Keeping the connection is huge because your mind could come in and out. Just like if you're concentrating on writing a book or you're listening to somebody's conversation. You've got a lecture and you tune out. It's no different than that. If somebody asked you to recall a 60-minute lecture and you could actually only come up with 3 words, maybe you tuned out. So a lot of this is about training the mind to be focused and to be tuned into that conversation so that you know you haven't drifted in your thoughts or gone into a fantasy world or something else that you remember from having a black lab in your life. Taking their character traits and building on them. It's not about that. It's about truly allowing them to have a voice and come through. And through knowing nothing, then everything is valuable. Neither is it generic. So it's not simply talking about characteristics of that particular species. Not generic at all. It's about the secrets only that person knows. So when the dog describes how they've left a footprint on somebody's heart, and that person has managed to blend 2 birthstones together, a purple and a pink, and where it is a stone around her neck, that's pretty secretive or private to find out. When the animal shares what the inside of the house looks like, a collage of pictures, we need a single photo, when they were looking at videos, or literally walking you through a home like a realtor would do, but they're a horse and they live in a barn. It's pretty impressive. People then get a little bit frightened by it, and they wonder where that information was gleaned. I remember clearly in Georgia when a client came for an evening class. I didn't even have him on the attendance list. It was a short-term or a last-minute decision that they'd made. I looked around the class, and intuitively I felt compelled to offer a consultation to a father and son. The consultation included talking to a dog that was not there. He was at home, but through a picture. I described the house inside and out fully, but it went far deeper than that, and it went far beyond that. It went into very personal aspects of their life as to how they'd moved home due to the son, the mental situation of the son, the family dynamics. It went into the move to help the whole family. Details that maybe won't get revealed right now, but nobody knew but the family. I didn't ask for feedback. I didn't read the facial expressions from the people. Certainly didn't have time to do anything else. The following night we had dinner out, and to my surprise, the family came. The wife was there, and she said, "You shook my husband's world." So much so that he came home and began to Google everything that you'd stated. He soon discovered, because he felt I'd Googled it, even if it was spontaneous and he wasn't on the register, he soon found out that there were no plans and layout, floor plans or layout to his house, that they had made alterations and nobody could have known. He soon found out that there was nothing about the reasons behind the move in any public records. So suffice to say, it spooked him a little bit, How could somebody know that? Sometimes people stay away from animal communication because they're frightened of what they don't know. They're frightened that their 40 or 50 years could be challenged on their belief systems. Maybe their horse training is their life's work. And what if they weren't doing it right? Maybe their religious beliefs shows that this is not okay to talk to animals. How do we face that? Well, animal communication becomes a journey of self-discovery. It's a limitless language, and it's open to those who have the open heart and the open mind. For me, the animals show us what it's truly about. They have allowed me to discover that Dr. Dolittle is real, that the Disney movies are real. They've helped me understand why I'm here. And I do believe that there's so many important days of our life, one when we're born and one when we discover why. And for me, my destiny is about the education and insights to animals, to elevate them up, and for people to open those hearts and minds, because your life will change. There will be no going back. You can't walk through that door in any other way. You can't shut the door. As my husband would say, you can't stay where you once were. You can only walk through it. They show you the truth. They turn your beliefs upside down. They give you another world, another paradigm. And that's why I'm an animal communicator, here to serve them and to save them, to give them a voice.